Chapter 647. The ground throbbed and twisted, as if something was about to break out of its shell, constantly protruding upward. The lava on the ground surged violently like a tide for a moment. Everyone's heart was covered with an unprecedented depression and silence. Bastard, that kid is really angry. Does he want to destroy Marlindo? Sengoku seemed to have guessed what kind of exaggerated trick Sakazuki used. He roared with a pale face. The violent vibration continued to spread, and the isolation area temporarily created by Aokiji gradually collapsed. The initial range was limited to the area where Dustless and Sakazuki fought. Until the end, with the power of the volcano, it spread to every corner of Marlindo. There's no mistake, it's that trick. It seems that Akainu kid is angry. Yes, he was beaten so badly. If it was me, I would also fight him to death. Garp said sympathetically. If his chin was crooked, maybe he would be angrier than Akainu. Well, so what? He pulled the entire Marine headquarters into the war. Sengoku snorted with dissatisfaction. If personal grievances were mixed in this competition, everything would change. Indeed, Meteor Volcano is enough to cover a large area of Marlindo, but with us here, what are you afraid of? Garp patted Sengoku's shoulder and laughed. Easy for you to say. Looking at Garp with dissatisfaction, Sengoku also turned his head to look at this unprecedented scene. Indeed, as Garp said, there was no need to worry. The range is amazing. Dustless nodded secretly. He was quite surprised by the range of this trick. The vibration continued to spread, as if Sakazuki could cover the entire Marlindo if he wanted. It was exaggerated beyond imagination, and the scale was even wider than Yasukani no Magatama. Such a great improvement was entirely due to Sakazuki's magma from the underground volcano. After combining with the power of nature, there was a qualitative change. Caw, the solid ground suddenly burst open, and the void turned fiery red in an instant, and the hot temperature evaporated the moisture in the atmosphere. Then, a sharp whistling sound resounded through the sky, accompanied by the words, "Meteor Volcano." The ground changed dramatically. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, countless flame fists rose from the ground, covering the void, and almost in the blink of an eye, they filled the entire sky. It was impossible to estimate how many there were, but the power was extremely frightening. Clang! The first-generation ghost blade was unsheathed again and a sharp blood-red light shot out, easily destroying the flaming fists that came out of the ground. However, there were simply too many of them. Even if Dustless could destroy one, two, in the face of hundreds and thousands of them, he could only sigh. Even if he wanted to stop them, he could only watch them fly into the void without using any other abilities. Countless flaming fists swept into the void and strangely disappeared. It was as if everything had ended and peace was restored. The boiling lava on the ground also stopped flowing. Everything came to an end. However, in the next second, the clear sky was thrown into chaos again. Looking up, countless flaming fists whizzed down. The densely packed area was enough to make one feel despair. The pressure from the huge magma fists was suffocating. Ah! Forcing me to use other abilities is a form of recognition for you, Sakazuki. You should be glad that I haven't used that ability more than a few times since I came to this world. Dustless lamented. Nonsense. I hope you can still be so calm when the countless magma fists hit you. Sakazuki glared at Dustless. In fact, he was looking forward to Dustless begging for mercy, but he was destined to be disappointed. Dustless didn't even look at him from beginning to end. His calm eyes stared at the descending magma fists. Countless magma fists. Do you think victory is in your hands, that you can easily defeat me? Don't have such a ridiculous idea. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. Dustless mercilessly attacked Sakazuki. However, Akainu maintained his arrogance at all times. Obviously, he was very confident in his moves. Dustless's words went in one ear and out the other. A lot. It's a lot. But it's a pity because I have more. Kai bow of the king. The void behind dustless shook violently in an instant. Countless vortexes suddenly appeared. Then, as many as the stars in the sky, all kinds of weapons poked their heads out of these vortexes. The exquisite craftsmanship and the sharp radiance made it obvious that it was not an ordinary item. Especially the exaggerated number of tens of thousands, as many as the grains of sand in the Ganges. It completely exceeded the concept of many. The entire sky was instantly dyed golden. How is this possible? What ability is this? The Marines led by Sengoku were stunned. Even Sakazuki was stunned as he stared at the divine weapons in the void. He wanted to count how many weapons there were, but he found that he couldn't count the exact number. One after another, a steady stream of weapons drilled out of the void. Tens of thousands. This dense number compared to the falling flame fist was obviously dwarfed. Akainu's meteor volcano was not worth mentioning. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, with a gentle wave of his hand, countless divine weapons rose into the air, rushing towards the lava fist that was descending from the sky. Boom boom boom, the silent void was able to explode, the weapons in the Kai bow of the king were destroyed and melted, but the same was true for the magma fist falling from the sky. The destroyed weapons were once again complacently replenished from the Kai bow of the king, and Akainu's meteor volcano was obviously not the same. It's over, Sakazuki. Don't ask for trouble. Looking at Akainu faintly, Dustless said bluntly, in human form, you and I may be evenly matched, but when I look down at you from the perspective of God, any resistance is a futile struggle. Chapter 648. Sakazuki's basically black face became even gloomier. Even if he tried to hide his inner calmness, his anxious expression was exposed to Dustless's eyes. The air was densely packed with all kinds of weapons, almost boundless, like a mountain. Sakazuki's breathing was dozens of times more difficult than usual. It seems that your justice is nothing more than this, Sakazuki. Dustless said calmly while holding back his inner smile. Akainu was covered in scarlet blood, and his chin was tilted by Dustless. The first impression he gave was that he was particularly miserable. In fact, this guy didn't suffer much damage, and Akainu's armament haki has reached the realm of perfection, resisting most physical attacks. Over. It's still far from over. Staring at Dustless, Sakazuki shouted. He is the kind of person who is extremely extreme. As long as his combat power is still there, it is tantamount to a fool's dream to want him to give up his views, which is unrealistic. In other words, as long as he didn't die and still had a breath of life left in him, he would never stop. Insensible man. Raising his eyelids, Dustless said hopelessly. This kind of stubborn person, unless he can't stand up, it is impossible for him to give up. Sakazuki's stubbornness and fortitude are known to the world. Bring it on. With a snort, Sakazuki's fighting spirit soared. The moment his voice fell, a black shadow fell in front of him in the blink of an eye, dead water silent eyes without luster, looking at Sakazuki as indifferent as a corpse. How can his speed be so fast? Sakazuki couldn't help but exclaim, his face was incredulous. Dustless's strange movement just now seemed to ignore the distance. Looking at Akainu's shocked eyes, Dustless didn't choose to rush, just looked at him. Speed. What is speed? Speed is distance. Dustless's whisper sounded in Sakazuki's ear, with a wise tone. What do you think the definition of distance is, 1 meter or 10,000 meters? Or perhaps it's even further away. For Dustless's words, Akainu was at a loss. He was confused and didn't quite understand the meaning. Don't you understand? Everyone's definition of distance is actually different. The ends of the earth in your eyes, in my eyes, is just a snap of the finger. If I explain it this way, you should understand what it means. Whether it is a short meter or a distant 10,000 meters, the meaning is the same for Dustless. the distance between 1 meter and 10,000 meters is just a thought. Are you kidding me? Akainu roared with a fierce look. At the same time, a huge magma arm condensed on his right arm, and mercilessly blasted toward Wu Qin, who was close at hand. The expanding magma fist was enough to devour and destroy everything in the world. Fire breath. In the end, the winner is the winner, the winner is the winner, the winner, the winner, the loser, the winner, the winner, the winner, the winner, the winner, the winner. The winner was the king, and the loser was the bandit. This was a principle that had not changed since ancient times. After all, history was written by the victors. Boom, 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 the splashing flames engulfed Dushless, and the whole person was wrapped in magma. This scene looked numb, and even with the defense of armament hockey, the surface of the skin would be seriously burned. Akainu's face was full of hope, his eyes were fierce, his right arm once again condensed boiling hot magma. This slight physical damage is far from enough to hurt Dustless, he must work harder. Fire breath. His arms condensed into giant magma fists, Sakazuki attacked mercilessly, the bursting magma swallowed Dustless layer by layer, the hot temperature is enough to melt steel. After dozens of times, Akainu was able to stop. Even with armament hockey defense, he will die. Seeing this, Akainu breathed a sigh of relief. His body with magma evaporated the sweat stains. The strength suppression brought by Dushless was like encountering the legendary natural enemy. It was a tricky situation. It's over. The powerful voice spread out, like a wave, fell into the ears of all the Marines present. Everyone nodded slightly. At this point, Akainu is indeed winning. It's over. It's really over, but unfortunately, the person who was defeated is called Sakazuki. The voice resounded through the endless void, full of rich magic, lingering in the sky for a long time. It didn't dissipate, it resounded in everyone's ears. Shinra Tensei. Boom. The thick magma wrapped around Dustless's body burst open, bounced off by a powerful force. The intact Dustless was exposed to everyone's ears. Impossible. Seeing this, Sakazuki's pupils dilated. He rubbed his eyes, thinking that he was old. Dustless didn't care about him. His palm covered the area where Sakazuki stood. A strange black hole appeared in his palm, revealing a strong gravitational force. Gravity is the natural enemy of all living and non-living things in nature. Bansho Tensei. Akainu's body flew over uncontrollably. He struggled hard. Even if he gritted his teeth to stop his body, he couldn't do anything. Under the pull of gravity, the dominance of his entire body belongs to Dustless. Akainu himself can only play a small role, like a stone thrown into the sea. It only caused a short ripple, and was immediately forcibly pulled over by Dustless. After just a few breaths, Akainu fell in front of Dustless. The deep eye sockets turned rapidly. The darkness was gradually swallowed and replaced by blood red. Dustless's eye sockets changed dramatically. The mysterious eyes composed of pentagrams were clearly visible. It's useless to struggle. This time I will finish you completely. Even if you are made of iron, I will put you to sleep. The pentagrams in the pupil of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan twisted, like ripples on the calm sea. Akainu was swallowed and annihilated in an instant. Tsukuyomi. Chapter 649. Tsukuyomi. As Dustless's voice fell, Akainu's violent eyes were as still as water, and the boiling lava all over his body also calmed down and returned to normal. His eyes were drowsy. Akainu looked at Dustless's face and intended to open his eyes and fight again, but he was powerless. He closed his eyes involuntarily and fell to the ground awkwardly. Seeing Akainu fall to the ground asleep, Sengoku, the leader of the Marines, felt relieved and breathed the fresh air easily. Just now, because of the Akainu fruit, the air that entered the lungs was abnormally hot and could easily burn human organs. You've gone too far. Seeing that there was no one around, Sengoku quietly swept to Dustless's face. Because of the deliberate control of the two, Marlindo was not affected. The area where Dustless and Akainu fought has become a pile of ruins. The scene of devastation was unbearable to look at, and the strange smell of burning was filling the air, making people nauseous. Don't blame me, it's all thanks to Sakasugi. Also, hit Akainu's face, that's your order. Dustless looked innocent and pushed all the blame to Fleet Admiral Sengoku. My order. Sengoku's old face suddenly turned red. If Dustless was really willing to obey his orders, the pirates in the various seas of the world may have been caught a few years ago. It doesn't matter, just find someone to redo it. Waving his hand, Sengoku was relieved. Looking at the fainted Sakasugi on the ground, Sengoku's old face flashed with embarrassment. To be honest, the reason why he took the opportunity to suppress Akainu was that this guy was too close to Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, and the position of the future fleet admiral may be close to him. Sengoku didn't want Akainu to take the position of Marine Fleet Admiral, so he had to join forces with Dustless to suppress his arrogance. It's best to make Sakasugi make a fool of himself in front of the world. In this way, Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, will hesitate. A Marine Fleet Admiral full of dirt, sitting on the top of the Marine will only make the military unstable. He only has himself to blame, Dustless said expressionlessly. The purpose of teaming up with Sengoku is very simple. This guy is a loyal dog of the Gorosei, and he has countless grievances with the Gorosei. Naturally, he doesn't want Sakazuki to become the fleet admiral. Thus, Lang Lang tricked him under the heavens. In truth, it didn't matter who the admiral was, except for Sakazuki. Is he okay? Seeing Akainu sleeping like a dead pig, Sengoku doubted. Hearing this, Dustless rolled his eyes, and a wicked smile flashed at the corner of his mouth. He gave Sengoku a look and said with a chuckle, "You can rest assured that Sakazuki will be very happy." Seeing Dustless's cunning smile, Sengoku's cheeks were full of strangeness. He knew that Dustless must be up to no good. At the same time, he also faintly guessed what Dustless meant. Then he shook his head and was too lazy to say more. Anyway, it has nothing to do with him. The plan given to Dustless didn't say that Sakazuki would be like this. Time flies, 7 days of effort quietly slipped through the fingers. The appearance of the 3 admirals was an unprecedented disaster for the entire pirate group. Akainu was fine. He was exhausted by Dustless's Tsukumi and temporarily recuperated in the marine headquarters. As for Akiji and Kizaru, they were pulled by Sengoku as coolies to lead the fleet at hand to sweep the new world. A new broom sweeps clean, this is what it means. Countless great pirates were locked and impelled down forever. You bastard, I will not let you go. A pig-like howl resounded throughout the marine headquarters. Sakazuki angrily smashed open the door of the fleet admiral's office. His scarlet eyes stared at Dustless, his whole body emitting hot lava. Sakazuki, give me a distraction. The coldness on Sengoku's face disappeared in a flash, and he warned coldly, "This is the first and last time, or you will get out of here immediately." Sengoku's tone was a little cold and murderous. This was his fleet admiral's office. Sakazuki's behavior didn't put him in his eyes at all. I'm sorry, this is my fault. Sakazuki's face stiffened as he realized his mistake and apologized solemnly. His huge fists were clenched with water stains, and his piercingly cold eyes were locked on Wuchin. His breathing increased several times in an instant, and his panting appearance was like a cow on the verge of despair. One could see the blue veins on his forehead. What the hell is going on? Sengoku frowned and asked. Akainu's character is irritable, but he can control his emotions. Especially in front of the fleet admiral, he is often depressed. He is a man of virtue. Few people know that he can curse people like today. Ah. Sakazuki, are you talking about me? I made you have wet dreams for 7 days in a row. You should thank me. I'm thinking about you. Dustless winked at Sakazuki. Hearing this, the old men, including Sengoku and Garp, showed a playful expression. Their eyes were empty and unfocused. They seemed to be thinking about how beautiful Sakazuki was. Seeing this, Sakazuki's old face collapsed. His whole face was twitching, and he was trembling with anger. His cold eyes were deeper and almost turned into a substantial murderous aura. What kind of scene he saw in Tsukuyomi's world could indeed be regarded as a wet dream. However, the objects were all strong, up to 10 meters tall, or even taller. Giant clan with thick chest and leg hair. What made Sakazuki vomit blood the most was that in Tsukuyomi's world, he couldn't resist Dustless at all. He could only resign himself to being tortured by the group of giant clan women for 7 days in a row. It left a serious psychological barrier. That's why Doflamingo can be so sensible. Chapter 651. Doflamingo was unwilling, but he could only hold it in and cursed Akainu, whose nose was sharper than a dog's, dozens of times. Then he remembered that Caesar's experiment had not made any progress, and he was relieved. The human gigantism experiment requires a long period of observation. Doflamingo did not have the leisure time to waste, but he secretly hated Akainu in his heart. For this mad dog, he was also very disgusted. The nickname Akainu came from this. Once he catches the enemy, no one can escape his nose that is sharper than a dog's. Maybe it wasn't Dustless's secret hindrance, Akainu had already come to the door. During this period, under the leadership of Doflamingo, they secretly visited the Pluton that Caesar was making. The exaggerated area, even Dustless couldn't help but be stunned after seeing it. It's no different from a moving steel island, and it's even better than that. The design of Pluton involves too much. The hardness and power of this super battleship are beyond imagination. According to Caesar's description, one shot can flatten an island at will. And the material used to build Pluton is very strange and extremely hard, which coincides with the stone carved with poneglyph and cannot be destroyed at all. This special material is not in Caesar's hands at present, so he can only choose other materials to replace it. Dustless wanted to melt the special material used to record the poneglyph to make Pluton, but after thinking about it, the poneglyphs scattered all over the world are rare, and it will take several years to collect it, and it is not enough to cope with the huge project of Pluton. Dustless also needs Robin to interpret the right and wrong grievances from hundreds of years ago. Therefore, he accepted Caesar's suggestion and used other materials to temporarily replace it. Although the ability in all aspects has been reduced, the power is still shocking enough to destroy an island. After Dressrosa dawdled for a few more days, Dustless returned to Mariewa. After working hard for several days, Dustless also felt deeply tired. After a simple wash, he was about to sleep when Hancock ran to Dustless's bedroom with messy steps. She wasn't as elegant as she usually was, and she didn't even knock on the door. A day ago, Marine Headquarters retired Admiral Z led his trainee ship to be attacked by pirates. All crew members were killed except for him and 2 students. Z's proud arm was cut off. Hancock reported. Dustless's sleepiness instantly disappeared. He couldn't help but be curious as he asked, "Who did it?" Although that old man Z is over 60 years old, his body is still as strong as an ox. Was it done by the 4 emperors? Z is famous for his armament hockey. His perverted defense is well known all over the world. To be able to cut off Z's arm, one can imagine how much power it takes. Hancock shook her head, and her beautiful eyes looked strange. There were very few people who could do this, and without exception, they were the kings of the sea. However, the instigator of this incident was unheard of. It seems to be called Edward Weevil, with a bounty of 480 million berries. Hancock's pretty face looked strange, and she tilted her head and spat out a cute little fragrance. His size and dress are similar to the Yonko, 4 emperors, Whitebeard, but that guy's IQ is not high. There are rumors that he is Whitebeard's biological son. Edward Wilbur. He's probably a cameo. After thinking for a long time, Dustless didn't have the memory of this person. He took the newspaper from Hancock's hand and his personal information. Dustless remembered such a character. Once with overwhelming strength, he destroyed the recruit ship led by Z and annihilated all of them, and he also cut off Z's right arm. Is this guy really Whitebeard's son? Hancock asked. Edward Weevil and the information is completely different from Whitebeard except for his beard and physique, and the weapons he uses are close to Whitebeard. But the most speechless thing is that this guy turned out to be a moron. It doesn't matter if he is Whitebeard's son. As a pirate, and with a bounty of 480 million berries, he can cut off Z's arm, which shows that his strength is at least at the level of an admiral. It doesn't matter whose son it is, this world is full of bloodlines. If he is not an ability user, he can cut off Z's arm with his own strength. It is estimated that his strength should be at the level of Whitebeard. Dustless was convinced. There was a little surprise in his words. This character that he had never heard of was like a stone that stirred up 1,000 waves. The eyes of the whole world are probably focused on him. In the past, Wu Qin and Z fought several times. Although Z suppressed him every time, it didn't mean that Z didn't live up to his name. Purely using armament hockey, the only one in the Marine who can match him is Garp. In other words, it's not that Z is too weak, it's that Edward Weevil is too strong. The only pity is that his wisdom is not high, only comparable to a child of a few years old. Sengoku is going to go berserk. Dustless touched his chin and laughed. Even if Z's influence is not as good as the hero of the Marine, Vice Admiral Garp, he is still a famous figure. Akainu, Hakiji, Kizaru, and the future Vice Admirals, most of them are Z's students. If Sengoku doesn't come up with a reasonable explanation, it will be difficult to calm the anger of these students. It's not only the Marine headquarters that can't swallow this, it's also a shock to the whole world. The right arm of a retired admiral was cut off by a pirate. This is already related to the prestige of the Marine. Sengoku naturally can't just muddle through. He and Z are comrades of the same period. Their relationship is better than brothers. It's destined that Sengoku can't swallow this insult. Chapter 652. The Den Den Mushi's expression was fierce. It's not difficult to see how angry Fleet Admiral Sengoku was. In the past, the arm of a Marine admiral was cut off, there must be a limit to his arrogance and barbarism. That damn pirate must pay the price. The moment he picked up the Den Den Mushi, Sengoku's hysterical roar came over, and this look of resentment seemed to jump out from the Den Den Mushi. Think about it, Z is not only a close friend of Sengoku, but to some extent, like Garp, he symbolizes the face of the Marine. Don't be impatient, don't forget that you are a Marine Fleet Admiral, you have to keep a poker face at all times. Dustless quietly sipped his tea and calmly said. The one who was cut off is your subordinate and close friend, what will you do? Sengoku asked in a low and hoarse voice, his tone was full of violence. As a Fleet Admiral, he really has to keep a poker face and not be seen through by others. However, there is a saying that the law is nothing more than human feelings, and Sengoku is not heartless. It depends on the person. With a deep light in his eyes, Dustless gave an ambiguous answer. For example, if someone like Hawkeye is killed one day, Dustless doesn't mind avenging him. As for Doflamingo, this kind of alien, not whipping his body after death is already too easy for him. By the way, is that guy really Whitebeard's son? This is interesting, the son of the old Whitebeard is an imbecile. Is this karma? Dustless said with interest. Imbecile. Sengoku's face turned green, and he was dissatisfied. The imbecile you said almost killed an admiral. If he can give birth to such an imbecile, I don't think Whitebeard will mind having a few more. Sengoku said angrily, although Z is old and his strength is not as good as before, he is still a Marine Admiral. What I said is the truth. That guy's brain is indeed lacking something. He didn't expect Sengoku to care so much about Z. Then he frowned and said, Z didn't lose to him unjustly. That guy's body is not right. There are several shocking scars on his body. His head and hands seem to have been cut off, but he is still alive. It sounded like a fantasy story, but that was the truth. There was even a photo as proof, so there was no room for quibbling. In the photos sent by Hancock, Edward Weevil's neck and arms were clearly visible. Apparently, they had been cut off by something sharp, but strangely, they overlapped. This meant that he had some kind of extraordinary healing ability. This guy is surprisingly similar to Kaido the 100 Beast. Carefully looking at the tall man in the photo, Dustless immediately thought of 100 Beast Kaido. Although there was a difference in ability, his physique and all kinds of wounds all over his body were clearly visible. They were all veterans. However, you should have a deeper meaning for coming to me, Sengoku. Dustless asked bluntly. In the blink of an eye, 5 days had already passed. Dustless originally thought that the 5 Elder Stars were unwilling to give up and secretly use some small tricks. They had even made preparations for a follow-up move. However, the entire sea was calm and tranquil these days. Z's consciousness has awakened. In the Fleet Admiral's office, Sengoku breathed a sigh of relief. His pale face squeezed out a few far-fetched smiles. His eyes were cloudy and he looked very tired and listless. Before celebrating Z's recovery, I think you should thank me. Dustless's untimely whisper fell into everyone's ears and the atmosphere suddenly stiffened. Thank you. Sengoku wondered. If it wasn't for Dustless's interference, Edward Wilbur would have become Mashichibukai, and would be famous all over the world. I'm talking about other aspects. Looking at Sengoku's eyes, Dustless was sure that this old guy was thinking crooked. Then he shook his finger and said with deep meaning. These words made a group of Marine executives look at each other and they were confused. I mean, once Edward Weevil joins the 7 warlords of the sea, what do you think Z will do? Dustless went straight to the point. Sengoku's expression solidified. If it was before, he wouldn't doubt Z, but after several pirate attacks, Z's heart and will have slowly changed. Sengoku was sure that after Edward Wilbur became Mashichibukai, Z would leave the Marine and even stand on the opposite side of the entire Marine. Sengoku's heart was filled with emotions. His best friend who fought side by side with him may give up his former ties at any time for some reason and turn to stand on the opposite side. Don't you have to thank me, Sengoku. Seeing Sengoku wake up from his dream, Dustless said with a smile. Hearing this, Sengoku just raised his head and glanced at Dustless, then he simply ignored him. His eyes fell on Kizaru and Akiji. He frowned and asked, You two joined forces and still let him run away? Sengoku looked at Kizaru and Akiji. The 2 admirals joined forces and still let the enemy run away. Although they left him with wounds, it still didn't make sense. Akiji shrugged his shoulders and showed a helpless look. Edward Wilbur is an ability user and he has a strong healing ability. It's not easy to kill him. Even when Akiji and Kizaru fought, they cut off his arm but it was still strangely connected. This is bad luck. Sengoku's old face turned into a pig's liver color as he cursed in his heart. He originally expected to capture Edward Wilbur alive and kill him to avenge Z, but he didn't expect the kid's ability to be so strong and finally let him run away. Dustless sipped his tea quietly until the end of the meeting. He didn't speak as if he was just going through the motions. Now the 3 admirals are the pillars of the Marine. An outsider like him naturally doesn't need to interrupt. Life or death doesn't matter to him. He is just a bystander. After the situation derails, he will lead him back to the track he set. Both Rayleigh and Akagami, red hair, Shanks are astute people, and Akagami, red hair, came all the way to the Sabaody archipelago. It is definitely not as simple as drinking wine. Thus, it also caused Wu-Chin to have no right to speak. Whatever he said, this little girl would disregard it and adopt a perfunctory attitude. Come here. His face was slightly cold. Taking advantage of the fact that Huiji was not here today, Wu-Chin planned to teach this little girl how to respect her teacher. In the past, every time he wanted to deal with this little girl, Huiji would always stop him. Yuki was obviously not an ordinary person. She inherited the bloodline of Kagaya and Dushless at the same time, and her ability index in all aspects was reported. Boom! Accompanied by a dull sound, the dazzling sunlight suddenly shone in. Yuki didn't even open the door and simply broke out of the wall. Master, how many times has Miss done this? Hancock's face was full of helplessness, and she was speechless about the father and daughter. This is also a free vent. The comfortable sea breeze came through the hole. Dustless took a deep breath, and his whole person felt much more relaxed, as if he was walking in the clouds. Looking carefully, Dustless and the others were on a fully equipped yacht. There were very few people on such a large yacht, and they only casually brought a few attendants, not even a bodyguard. Dead father, come and see what I got. Yukishi's crisp childish voice resounded through his ears. Dustless just helplessly shook his head and sighed. He had corrected Yukishi countless times, but this little girl still called him that. She even directly called Dustless by his name. This is all your fault, master. Hancock rolled her eyes. Dustless didn't deny it. He really didn't accompany Yukishi for a long time, and these days he was very idle, so he wanted to take her to the East China Sea to play, which could be regarded as a kind of alternative compensation. His body turned into a breeze, and in an instant he came to Yukishi's side. It's just a broken bucket, what's there to be surprised about? There's someone inside. Even Dustless, who was accustomed to storms, couldn't help but be stunned at this moment. On the endless sea, there was no sign of life for hundreds of kilometers. Could it be? This strange way of drifting made Dustless suddenly think of a person. After so many years, he should also go to the sea, but Dustless didn't expect such a coincidence. And he was caught by his daughter. I'm really sorry, I encountered a shipwreck on the first day of going to the sea. A handsome boy came out of the wooden bucket, and the face that came into view was the face in Dustless's memory, wearing a plain straw hat, with a sunny smile on his face, and an optimistic attitude. In the dark, Dustless also seemed to be influenced. The chill in his heart was swept away, and his eyes looked at the naive boy in front of him. In the future, he would turn the whole world upside down. Monchi D. Luffy. Dustless subconsciously called out the boy's name. Luffy heard the name and stared at Dustless's calm face, and curiously asked, "You know me?" His black eyes widened, as if he had seen a ghost, scrutinizing Dustless, and subconsciously took a step back. He lived in Windmill Town since he was a child, and his mind was simple. The people who knew Luffy were limited to the people inside, and he didn't have any interaction with the people in the outside world. I barely know you, but your grandfather Garp and I are colleagues. Dustless said indifferently. The bloodline of your Monchi family is unbelievably strong. Dustless recognized Garp's answer in disguise and was filled with emotion. Garp is a marine hero. He has driven Roger to desperation several times, making him world famous. His son Dorag is known as the world's most ferocious criminal. As for Luffy, the rising star, he will not be worse than the previous two in the future. Invincible's attack suddenly stopped. Zoro looked at Luffy's innocent eyes and said, even so, some people in the world still gave him a title. The youngest and most powerful admiral in history. Chapter 660. Luffy was confused. Although he didn't understand what Zoro meant, to make such an Iron Man full of fear and fanaticism, Zoro must not be an ordinary person. That gigolo is actually so powerful. Luffy suddenly said with an expression that said, "I understand." Luffy seemed to be surprised that Dustless was as powerful as Zoro said. Luffy opened his mouth exaggeratedly, and his stunned expression was quite comical. Seeing this, Zoro's eyes became cold. He raised his arm and waved his hand, and an unparalleled slash was sent out. The target was Luffy, who was in a daze. Before the slash arrived, a cold chill enveloped Luffy's body. Luffy's body shivered uncontrollably, and he quickly responded. Whoosh! His arm extended without limit, and he grabbed the railing in the distance and flew over instantly. Is this guy a legendary ability user? Zoro's eyes widened, and he was surprised. Although he had heard of the legend of Devil Fruit ability users before, this was the first time he encountered one, and he couldn't help but be surprised. Remembering that Luffy was fine when he was attacked, he suddenly felt relieved. In the eyes of ordinary people, Devil Fruit ability users were synonymous with mystery. But this is for the best. He is more worthy to be my opponent. Excitement appeared in Zoro's clear eyes. The muscles between Zoro's legs tightened, and he chased after Luffy with all his strength. His cold eyes clearly saw Luffy as a prey within reach. Hey, hey, hey. I don't have a deep hatred with you. You don't have to be so desperate. Seeing that Zoro was not going to act until he was certain, Luffy couldn't help but yell. He couldn't help but complain in his heart. A duel between swordsmen doesn't require hatred. If I want to, I will pursue. Zoro rushed over madly with his sword, and a storm was set off behind him. It was obvious how exaggerated his speed was, and he left a mark on the ground. Seeing this, Luffy's eyes lit up, and he realized that Zoro was not a weak opponent. I have no reason to fight with you. Luffy still yelled. His tone was somewhat different from his usual self. It gave people the feeling of a hunter looking at his prey. That's your business. Zoro snorted and didn't care. Bang! Luffy, who was galloping, suddenly stopped and landed on the ground like a cannonball. He raised a cloud of dust as he looked at Zoro. I can fight you, but if you lose, you have to become my companion. Lowering the brim of his hat, Luffy's bright and spirited eyes were filled with confidence. It was the complete opposite of his previous restrained sharpness. Now, he was like a peerless weapon that had been unsheathed. His threatening gaze made people not dare to look straight at him. Companions. It seemed that this was the first time Zoro had heard such a strange word. Zoro's footsteps suddenly stopped, and he lowered his head to think. He was a little tempted by Luffy's proposal. The East Sea was the smallest sea region and was publicly acknowledged as the weakest sea region in the four seas. Buzz buzz buzz, the rune on his waist suddenly trembled and let out a clear cry. It was filled with hot-blooded intent. Seeing this, Zoro was moved. The hesitation in his eyes turned into determination. This was the sword of his best friend. Zoro once swore that one day in the future, he would become the world's #1 swordsman. Guina's dream was to become the world's #1. Why not? I'm not scared of you. Since you can defeat me, I'll do as you wish. Zoro tied his headscarf with a cold light flashed in his eyes. His aura was raised to the extreme. Unlike the previous small fight, he was ready to face Luffy. Zoro was deeply touched by Luffy's confidence. If this guy really had the ability to defeat him, he would accompany him to explore the new world. After all, staying in the East Sea was the weakest place in the world. Seeing this, Luffy's smile turned into a real action. His body instantly disappeared and turned into a flash of lightning. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Zoro. He completely ignored the definition of distance. In the blink of an eye. That monkey D. Luffy is exactly the same as dustless Sama's description. White Zetsu, who was observing the situation from afar, said in disbelief. Although Luffy had always acted like a careless person, but now that he lured Zoro into his trap, it was obvious that he was a smart person. Although sometimes Luffy was an idiot, or naive, he was actually a very shrewd person. Small things were blurred, but in reality, he couldn't tolerate sand in his eyes. White Zetsu took a deep look at the two people who were passionately colliding. Dustless of Mariewa was still waiting for his other news. In the luxurious bedroom, the lights were bright and luxurious. Dustless, who came back from the East Sea, was tired. First, he lay in bed and slept for a long time. Then, he read the newspaper day after day. Then, he listened to White Zetsu's report. In the evening, he would occasionally go for a walk. For more than 10 years, it had become a daily routine. After about half an hour, White Zetsu emerged from the ground and looked at Dustless, who was relaxing on the sofa. He just stood aside and didn't speak. Did you find out the source? After an unknown period of time, Wuchen opened his eyes and asked calmly with an awe-inspiring luster. Yes, I found out. Hearing this, White Zetsu nodded. After several years of hard work, he finally found the source of the news. Take back the dark fruit by all means. Dustless said. About 10 years ago, Dustless used the dark fruit to successfully provoke the war between the Bigumam pirates and the Whitebeard pirates. Although it was finally eaten by Baron Eggy of the Bigumam pirates, the whereabouts of the fruit were unknown after Hawkeye successfully killed Baron Eggy. It wasn't until today that traces of it were found. The dark fruit seems to be useless to Dustless Sama. White Zetsu wondered. Dustless's strength was obvious to all, and the dark fruit was just icing on the cake. Its role was actually minimal and completely dispensable. It's useless to me, but it's useful to others. The dark fruit can make people a peerless powerhouse, but it can also make people a drowned rat. Chapter 661. There are two sides to everything. If you can use it well, you will naturally benefit yourself. If you don't use it well, you will only hurt yourself. Where is it? Dustless asked with interest. White Zetsu's face flashed a little helplessness when he heard the words. It may be a relationship of cause and effect. It is unexpected that it would fall into anyone's hands. His pale face was full of embarrassment. Speak quickly. Dustless frowned and said coldly. He cursed in his heart. If it wasn't for White Zetsu, who was personally created by him, he could be absolutely trusted. If it was someone else, he might have been blown to pieces many years ago. Thinking of this, Wuchen suddenly remembered the target of obtaining the devil fruit in the original work. 4th Division Captain Thatch. Blackbeard knew that after Thatch got the dark fruit, he finally killed and robbed the devil fruit. Therefore, he was wanted by the Whitebeard pirates and had to join the evil forces of Shichibukai. Did it fall into the hands of Blackbeard? Dustless's brows were slightly raised and his tone was a little colder. The warm room suddenly turned gloomy, and a bone-chilling cold descended. That's not it. He doesn't have such good luck. White Zetsu shook his head. Blackbeard is already witty enough. It's really unfair for God to be so good to him. It fell into the hands of the 2nd Division captain, that is, Fire Fist Ace. White Zetsu told the truth. Some things have their own destiny. In the original work, it was the 4th Division Captain Thatch who got it, but now it has become Fire Fist Ace. Fire Fist Ace. Isn't that the little brat who wanted to take my head? In his mind, the kid he met in Windmill Town suddenly appeared. Dustless had a playful smile on his mouth. Just a few years ago, he quickly became popular throughout the sea. After challenging Shichibukai Jinbe, he challenged and attacked Whitebeard hundreds of times. As a result, he was caught every time. However, the heroic Whitebeard let him go with a bounty of 550 million berries. Maybe Whitebeard knew that he was Roger's son and showed mercy. Dustless whispered softly. But in any case, it doesn't matter now. Dustless coldly said, fortune and misfortune come hand in hand. But this time, it might be a misfortune instead of a blessing for you. White Zetsu nodded and fell into the hands of the Whitebeard pirates. This was not the beginning of luck, but the beginning of disaster. Immediately investigate the whereabouts of Fire Fist Ace. Once you've figured it out, report it to me immediately. Dustless said coldly, a sinister aura surging from between his brows. Towards a person who tried every means to kill him, Dustless would not be soft-hearted and lenient. Leniency was only limited to people who were sincere towards Dustless. Fire Fist Ace was not in this range. Even if he had some friendship with Garp, he could not understand. Public and private matters should be clearly distinguished. White Zu nodded. Since it was Dustless's choice, he would absolutely respect it. This was the essence of existence. Then, like a ghost, he drilled into the depths of the ground. Father, who are you going to cheat again? Take me with you. Okay. There was a burst of spatial fluctuations around him, and Yushi came out of it, rubbing against Dustless's face, smiling coquettishly, her eyes full of desire. This. Okay, but you can't make trouble for me, or I will immediately throw you to your mother. Dustless nodded and agreed to Yushi's coquettishness. In fact, he was also worried. Mariewa Gorosei, 5 elder stars, are not good things. Leaving Yushi alone in Mariewa is tantamount to putting her into the mouth of a tiger or wolf. Although this little girl is talented, her actual combat experience is 0, and Kagaya has never taught her ninjutsu. Dustless is the same. Although he knows some ninjutsu, most of them are fancy and so on. Whether they are reliable in actual combat or not, only God knows. And more because of guilt, Dustless also wants to spend more time with her, which can be regarded as making up for the little regret in his heart. Although Fire Fist Ace has a bounty of 550 million berries, he can't make big waves. Father is the best. Seeing this, little Yushi smiled and gently pecked Dustless's face, giggling, singing, laughing, dancing, and laughing very happily. Dustless's mouth also swept a faint smile. It is enough to make his daughter happy. In fact, Gorosei, 5 elder stars, and Blackbeard, as well as Fire Fist Ace, are not important, anyway, they are just props for fun. When he is in a good mood, he might as well play with them, but when he is in a bad mood, they are just a punching bag, that's all. This little girl has been too idle recently, I have to teach her some self-defense techniques. Dustless secretly decided in his heart. Yushi inherited the physique of Dustless and Kagaya, as well as the unprecedented huge chakra. Dustless does not expect Yushi to be a strong help in the future, at least she can protect herself. The strength of several women in the system's inner world has been greatly improved. During this period, Dustless has collected many devil fruits and gave them to eat one by one. The light fruit that was previously extracted by the system was given to Kagaya to use, and it is also one of the ultimate devil fruits. Its power is peerless, and after decades of use, Kagaya has already exerted its power to the extreme. As for the other women, Dustless is naturally prepared and has aimed at a lot of powerful fruits. His confidence, the devil fruit ability is naturally second to none. It is impossible to make up the numbers. Father, I also want a devil fruit. Yushi, who was rolling in Dustless's arms, blinked her eyes and said with a hopeful tone. What type do you want? Rubbing the little girl's hair, Dustless asked calmly. Yushi tilted her head, making a thoughtful look, and then her eyes flashed. The ability of that guy called Manchi D. Luffy is good. Puff! Hearing this, the tea that Dustless sent to his mouth instantly burst out, and he looked at Yushi with a strange face. This is obviously hinting that Dustless killed Luffy. Chapter 662. Time flew by and 3 days passed in a blink of an eye. Dustless came to the bustling island according to White Zetsu's information and swept straight from the shore. The bustling crowd was clearly visible. Will there be traces of Ace in such a bustling city? Yushi took Dustless's hand and stared at him with childlike eyes and asked doubtfully. It should be. The source of White Zetsu's information has always been accurate and there is rarely any deviation. Dustless nodded softly. Although he also had doubts, White Zetsu has never made a mistake, this is an unquestionable fact. Let's go and see. Patting Yushi on the shoulder, Dustless smiled. Little Yushi nodded and followed Dustless into the street. Facing the dazzling goods on both sides of the street, Yushi, who entered the city, was immediately dazzled, looking at Dustless with watery eyes full of desire. This little girl, just pick 2 things. Father is here to do business. Dustless helplessly scratched Yushi's nose and smiled. Little Yushi nodded her head excitedly like a chicken pecking rice, then broke away from Dustless's arms and rushed into the crowd. Shopping in the supermarket seems to be a woman's nature in any world, even children are the same. After half an hour, the shopping spree was over. When he ran out of the crowd, Wu Chen was already carrying countless bags of various sizes. Is this what you call 2 or 3 things? Dustless rolled his eyes, his face was depressed, looking at the 3 lives. It was the first time he became someone else's follower. Little Yushi just looked at Dustless with a grimace, then held the candy in her hand and jumped happily. Watching Dustless, who was following her, was speechless. His eyes turned sharply and he used kamui to swallow the big and small bags. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. If Obito knew, he would probably jump out of hell. Looking straight at Yushi in front, Dustless also followed. Perhaps the father and daughter were born with a bad sense of direction. After searching for an afternoon, they didn't find any trace of the Whitebeard pirates. They didn't even see the shadow of a pirate. As dusk approached, Dustless could not help but call out Zetsu. Those guys are very sneaky. They secretly trade devil fruits. Ace is lucky to have encountered the dark fruit, White Jew said in a serious tone. The Whitebeard pirates are extremely powerful. Do they need to do devil fruit business? Little Moon, she wondered. Baizu just looked at Dustless. What he meant was obvious. All of this was thanks to him. There's nothing strange about it. The Whitebeard old man is probably trying to get some devil fruits to enhance the strength of the Whitebeard pirates. I'm afraid he realized that his body can't support him for a long time, so he made this plan to prevent accidents. Dustless's eyes lit up. Whitebeard is over 70 years old and has reached the limit of the human body. In addition, he is a pirate and has been on the battlefield for a long time. His body inevitably has countless old diseases. Some of them were given by Dustless before. How many people are there in the Whitebeard pirates? Dustless asked blankly. Not many. This kind of secret transaction is secretly monitored by Marine. There are only a few people on both sides. There are only 5 or 6 people in the Whitebeard pirates. White Jew explained. Well, I thought Whitebeard would prepare dozens of coffins. I didn't expect there to be only 5 or 6. Dustless's killing intent made the surrounding air as cold as ice. Lead the way. With Dustless's cold order, the 3 disappeared into the dusk. Brat, you dare to trick us. Don't push your luck. Remember what kind of people are standing in front of you. Ace said sternly, showing off his ability. In the dark space, Ace looked at the iron boxes on the ground and warned. These large boxes are all devil fruits, but they are all garbage. Only the dark fruit is an exception, but this group of country bumpkins didn't seem to recognize it. However, there is only one dark fruit. Most of them are artificial devil fruits passed down by Doflamingo. Although Kaido used artificial devil fruits to build an army of devil fruits, Whitebeard still chose to be careful and abandoned the artificial devil fruits. The unscrupulous selling is also deliberately allowed by Dustless. It won't be long before those people slowly collapse and die. Nonsense, so what if it's a man-made devil fruit? It's the real deal. Look at 100 Beast Kaido, his devil fruit army swept through the New World. The devil fruit dealer in charge of the transaction with Ace quibbled. How dare you? You still dare to argue? Ace glared at him angrily, flames already burning behind his back. You are the Whitebeard pirates. You have to follow the rules. Otherwise, no one will trade with you in the future except for me. Don't destroy your own future. The pirate responsible for the transaction was not willing to be outdone, but he was obviously not confident. After all, the other side is the Whitebeard pirates, one of the Yonko, 4 emperors. The Whitebeard pirates are the law. This is the rule. Hearing that, Fire Fist Ace laughed out of anger. The flames behind him burned even more intensely. Just as he was about to finish them off with a single blow, an untimely teasing voice rang out. The words of the Whitebeard pirates are the rules and the way. That's just self-deception. Can't you see that the reason why Whitebeard is working so hard to collect devil fruits is to improve the strength of your group of sons? To prevent you from being swallowed by other pirates when he dies one day. The disdainful voice resounded through the sky. In the dark warehouse, it didn't disperse for a long time. When mentioning the Whitebeard pirates, it was full of disdain and contempt. Ace suddenly turned his head and stared coldly at the place where the voice sounded. Since everything is according to the rules of the underworld, then I will be the arbitrator as a third party. Now I judge that the dark fruit is mine. As for you people, you will die to purify the air of the world. The calm voice was filled with carelessness, but it was strangely certain. Wu Qin and the other 2 walked out from the darkness. Chapter 663. Aware of Dustless's existence, Fire Fist Ace's pupils suddenly shrank. He instantly thought of the person who was forcibly abducted and flew away a few years ago. He always remembered it in his heart and didn't dare to forget. But after knowing that Dustless was a Marine Admiral, Ace did not rush to take revenge. After failing to challenge Dustless, he simply joined the Whitebeard pirates so that he could come in and face Dustless head-on. Don't stare at me so fiercely, you know that I am a very timid person. Seeing Ace staring at him, Dustless pretended to be afraid. Oh, it turned out to be a vase, but looking at it, it's just a pretty boy. The big man who was responsible for fighting Ace breathed a sigh of relief and stared at Dustless, Yushi, and Waitzetsu with a green luster. Some things can't be seen, and seeing it means that he has to shut up. Pretty boy. Hearing this, Dustless was stunned and touched his face subconsciously. It seems that people in every world like to call him that. Father does have the talent to be a pretty boy, but it's better than the stinky beard that no one wants. Little Yushi blinked seriously. Dustless couldn't help but smile and gently tap the little girl's forehead with a little helplessness. This daughter's personality coincides with his and always likes to tease others. Looking for death. The brawny man who was responsible for trading with Fire Fist Ace was furious. How could he not hear Yushi's ridicule? He immediately waved the blade in his hand and whistled straight. The same was true for several brawny men behind him. Pucci, Dustless saw this scene and ripples splashed in the void behind him. Several long spears made of gold shot out and directly penetrated the abdomen of the 5 men, leaving clear bloody holes. Seeing this, Yushi's eyes lit up. Just as she was about to ask, Wu Chen's magnetic voice that seemed to be in control of everything sounded first. The king's treasure is only limited to me in the world. At the same time, his eyes carefully examined Fire Fist Ace, and he couldn't help but have a bright feeling. Now he is hundreds of times stronger than the young child of the beginning. You are much stronger than before. Thinking of the weak Ace who could be destroyed with a wave of his hand, and looking at him whose strength reached 550 million berries, Dustless couldn't help but feel emotional. This is all thanks to you, you are my motivation to move forward. Ace said contemptuously as he looked at the pirates who were killed by Dustless. These are all scum. Even if the 5 people add up, their bounty is less than 100 million berries, and their strength is completely different from his. I can see regret in your eyes, Ace, who was full of fighting spirit, growled. He can be sure that Wu Chen did not expect that today he would become a big pirate with a bounty of 550 million berries. Regret? Hearing this, Dustless's mouth curled into a playful smile, and he asked with great interest, what do you think I will regret? Regret that you have become a pirate with a bounty of 550 million berries. Or, do you think that your current strength can threaten me, so you think that I am afraid of you, so you are happy? With contempt in his eyes, Dustless's eyes were full of indifference. The loneliness of being at the top deeply stung Ace's nerves. His eyes were full of sneers as he looked at Ace as if looking at a bug. As the 2nd Division captain of the Whitebeard Pirates, Ace's dignity was seriously challenged. Looking at Dustless coldly, Ace's killing intent was awe-inspiring. This is naked contempt. Dustless knows that he is the 2nd Division captain of the Whitebeard Pirates, but he is still so frivolous. Obviously, he is satirizing the Whitebeard Pirates, and the person he respects the most, Whitebeard. You think you have calculated everything and can control everyone's fate? Ridiculous. The gears of fate are not something that people like you can predict, and I am not in the range of your narrow eyes. Ace shouted loudly. Immediately, his body jumped up, and bright sparks flashed in mid-air, and the hot temperature instantly melted the steel. Why don't you just vanish into thin air? Stop being so arrogant. Fire fist. A giant flame arm blasted over, and the temperature was frightening. In an instant, the entire dark warehouse was lit up, and the monstrous oppression was frightening. You are the one who deceives yourself. Taking a step forward, Dustless stared indifferently at the large flame fist falling down. He raised his white hand and a golden beam converged at the tip of his thumb. Laser. Whiz. Accompanied by a sharp piercing sound, the light condensed at the tip of his finger whizzed out, drawing a straight line in the air and unavoidably coming into contact with the falling flaming fist. Boom boom boom, there was a devastating explosion in mid-air, and the blazing heat wave directly destroyed the dark warehouse, and the steel almost turned into liquid in an instant. The coquettish dusk in the evening also shone, enveloping this wailing island. What a gorgeous sunset. But it's also suitable for the final requiem of your Whitebeard pirates. So that you won't come out of the grave to trouble me, it's also luxurious. Dustless chuckled. What arrogance! Ace's chill condensed, and the hot flame gathered in his hand. The oppressive posture seemed to be more terrifying than the rising sun, and the ground was burned black in an instant. A dazzling light enveloped Dustless, making him subconsciously close his eyes. Seeing this, Ace's face outlined a sneer arc, as if the victory was in his hand, and the raised big hand slammed down. Flame ring, pillar of fire. Boom boom boom, the blazing pillar of fire engulfed Dustless in an instant. The earth trembled. This unexpected calamity was like the wrath of the heavens. It happened so suddenly that Dustless was completely unaware that he was directly engulfed. God can't take you, I can only punish evil and promote good instead of him. Seeing Dustless being swallowed, Ace said, and a Marine admiral would be injured by this move. Punish evil and promote good? I really don't know what this kind of small action is, and you can talk without knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. It seems that the Whitebeard pirates really have no one. Chapter 664. His eyes widened as Ace stared at the figure coming out of the fire pillar. His face was incredulous as his eyes widened and even showed signs of falling out. This guy can withstand fire ring with his physical strength alone. Ace's mentality was accustomed to storms and waves, but he couldn't help but feel suffocated at this moment. He never felt that this move could kill Dushless, but it's too unreasonable for him to be unscathed. You want to kill me, aren't you prepared? Dustless's eyes looked at Ace carefully as he said indifferently. Between the words, there was no trace of discomfort. Obviously, it wasn't an act. Don't be so surprised, I can tell you clearly, now is the beginning of your nightmare. Dustless sneered. Although the moves are exaggerated and powerful, it can't hurt him. Don't get carried away. Ace shouted with a dark face. He suddenly realized that as long as he gave in a little, Wu-Chen would go from bad to worse. If you gave him a jujube in return, he would give you 2 tight slaps and step on your face a few times. Only then would he be satisfied. So what if I'm proud, can you bite me? Dustless provoked. Then he raised his eyes and quietly looked at Ace, who was still in shock. His pupils twisted sharply and his eyes suddenly turned scarlet Sharingan. The evil eye power began to rage. Amaterasu. The enchanting black fire instantly swallowed Ace's body, but he was obviously prepared. The Amaterasu just passed through his body and didn't touch Ace. Are you an idiot? You have to use armament hockey to deal with a Logia user. Ace sneered, reminding Dustless out of kindness. Hearing this, Dustless's eyes flashed with contempt. I just don't think it's necessary to use armament hockey to deal with you. Don't be too self-righteous. Ace heard this and laughed angrily. As a Logia user and the 2nd Division captain of the Whitebeard Pirates, it was the first time he heard someone dare to speak so arrogantly. To deal with him without using armament hockey, Whitebeard may not have the courage to say so. Dustless didn't bother to talk nonsense with Ace. He directly appeared in front of him like a ghost and raised his right hand, revealing a small black hole. Seeing this, Ace did not hesitate and hurriedly used his elemental transformation to dodge the attack. 10,000 Mammoth Heavenly Attraction. A strange gravitational force enveloped Ace. That evil and cold devouring power seemed to want to devour him forever. On the other side of Dustless's little black hand, it seemed to be the abyss of the universe. As long as he was devoured, he would not be able to take another step forward. Determination flashed across Ace's eyes. He immediately cancelled his elemental transformation and broke free from the control of gravity. His entire body instantly felt much more relaxed. Seeing Ace materialize, Dustless was like an old fisherman who had been quietly waiting for a long time. He quietly appeared behind Ace, a sneer on his face. Then, a heavy kick mercilessly smashed down. Boom boom boom, a black shadow swept the ground out of thin air, the dust on the ground splashed, a large deep pit appeared, and the ground and the pit became like particles of debris. Cough cough cough, Poochie. After a long while, Ace in the deep pit supported his body with his arms on the ground and spat blood uncontrollably from the corner of his mouth. Dustless didn't use hockey and actually attacked him, and it was not because of the attribute. He immediately looked at the black hole in the palm of Dustless's hand. After staring for a long time, his face was still blank. You are also the son of the Pirate King. Don't be so ignorant. It will insult your father's wisdom. Seeing Ace's ignorant face, Dustless chuckled. You dare to. Witnessing Dustless being so arrogant and conceited, Ace's loosened palm clenched again. When Logia's ability is elementalized, it means that the body loses mass and naturally can't escape the capture of gravity. Not only you, the host of the flame fruit, but every plant in the world is affected and restrained by gravity. Regardless of whether Ace could understand or not, Dustless explained. Why is the dark fruit called the most ferocious fruit? Because its ability is to control gravity, which means that everything in the world is affected by gravity. It's just that the gravity is strong or weak. The gravity of Ace's elementalization can naturally swallow him. In other words, gravity is the natural enemy of the whole world. However, the key is the strength of the host's own gravity. Even when gravity is strong to a certain extent, light can't escape its capture and will be easily swallowed, let alone the flame fruit. Do you still think you have a chance now? It's too boring to use armament hockey to deal with you. It's more suitable for me to trample on your self-esteem like this. Dustless stood with his hands behind his back and calmly looked at Ace. In the moment when he actually met Ace's face, the outcome of the battle was already decided. The outcome of the battle was not how Ace broke out, but how long Dustless wanted him to play, the natural enemy of everything. Why don't you try this? I hope you'll be able to take him down safely. Forcibly supporting his body to stand up, Ace looked at Dustless without fear. He was ready to die, and at the same time, his eyes signaled the crew of the Whitebeard pirates who had been watching the battle in the dark. It was obvious that he was telling them to run. Clearly, Ace was going to risk everything and go all out. Want to run? I'm a glint fruit user. What do you think the word escape means? Staring at the black shadows fleeing in the distance, Dustless sneered again and again, his body swept with a bright luster, and he almost came to them in an instant. A strong oppressive flash gathered on his toes. Speed is power. Have you ever been kicked at the speed of light? But looking at your eyes, you shouldn't have enjoyed such high-level treatment. The light gathered on his right calf roared down, and the straight line in the air was particularly dazzling. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.